That's what the Russians were saying, because they had just run out after 10 years. They said, we had enough, after all the damage they did. 1.6 million people killed by the Russians in Afghanistan, 10% of the population. At that time, 16 million was the population of Afghanistan. If the Russians killed those numbers are so big that we don't pick them up here. It's okay. Then they went to Iraq. It was a 100% lie. Weapons of mass destruction. They never found none. They never smelt none. They never got close to none. And they rolled on over there. Same story. Man, we kicking behind and taking names. Technically, did this rolled over because, in Iraq, they don't have, it's not like Vietnam where you can hide your tanks in the woods and all of that. It's just open desert. So all the weapons you got, right, you can see everything and bam, push buttons and it was a disaster. And then finally they caught old Saddam Hussein and then put him on trial. And all of a sudden, we wrote an article in 2004. It was called Another Islamic State. Does anybody remember that? Another Islamic State. Now, what we forecast and predicted that we will get 65% of what we want. In other words, the state of Iraq will be 65% headed in our directions, whatever it takes. That means the Congress, the Majlis, the system, it will be more Islamic than anything we've had before except Iran. Iran is on a roll. I tell you, the longer this goes, the more prouder and happy I'm becoming about Iran. There's no doubt about it. Not perfect, but we'll talk about some of the things that's going on. So Iraq, well, what happened then? It was a trick, and the only one that was big enough to trick these dummies was Allah. So he tricked them. Go in Afghanistan. They drove in there. Caves was Tora Bora, and they had old Bin Laden set up. He probably died 3 days after whatever. He had liver problems, And then the pictures you would see that's supposed to be Bin Laden, it looked like Abdullah Jobani or somebody. You know what I mean? Remember you see the pictures? They got his back to the wall. He's watching TV and all that. And so what you ain't got out all them pictures from Abbottabad, whatever it is. You don't have no straight-on picture. And then they do facial recognitions, and then it didn't fit the modern, the modern stuff they got. They said that ain't but it makes no difference. Here's what happened. It appears that Allah has set in motion the transition of things in these modern times. And there's acceleration of events. But the transfer of power and authority is headed in a certain direction. And Allah could just swoop and make everything happen. But then the people there's what's called a sunnat of Allah, that Allah has set up all these rules, guidelines, gravity, the pull of gravity, human nature. He created all of that. He created all of that to work in harmony. If the human being followed the hidayah, right? They will be in balance with the creation. If they go out of balance, the mathematical certainty is this, that the farther they go out of line, right, from the Quran, though basically the worse things are going to get, because the balance will be, imagine when you put on new tires, you have to get them balanced, right? And if you don't have them balanced, the car will shake so much you will think, what's wrong with this car? And all you have to put is few little attachments here and there, right? And now it's running smooth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this earth. Hey, all people knew that there's something special going on here. It was not in a movie from outer space. What did the guy say? The guy from outer space, and the earth stood still. Remember that? Yeah, remember there's a scene there in the rain. He says, I thought you said you came to save the earth. Well, yeah. But then she thought, you came to save the earth from us. There's only a few places like this in the universe, and you know what I mean, which makes sense. There's only a few environments like this in the universe. We know where we don't know the whole universe, but we know this region of the universe, and it ain't nothing going on but here and 4 or 5 more other places that supports this comprehensive kind of life. So you came to take the earth, to protect the earth from us. That's the way it go. And then she's, of course, pleading that, oh, come on now, we're not that bad. And finally he says, okay, we'll give you another chance, stuff like that. But that makes sense. At least the people that are making some movies are doing some thinking. What makes sense is something that the so-called Secretary of State lady said. When old environments come in contact with new environments, it says the ones that has the most power and are organized obliterates the other or turns it into slaves. Right? Like when America came, when the people came, they came over here from Europe, they just ruined. It's perfect. It's nice over here. The people, they was having wars like all other people, but they wasn't like slaughtering. When the people came from Europe, hey man, Mexico City, the floating gardens of Mexico City had 500,000 people hundreds of years ago. And they wasn't living that religious. I mean, they was sacrificing people and stuff. I mean, but it was just logo chicanery. Out of all the peoples, I didn't mean to change this subject, but I watch programs with Native Americans when they talk about the beliefs and what have you. They always mention prophets, messengers, and a reviver, like all the stuff we have, they have it too. They have it in there, and Wonka Tonka is the big, the other thing like the eagle and the hawk-eyed, they got good characteristics that says, man, an eagle or a hawk can see a little old mouse from 1,000 feet up, that's nice, and they might give that some extra angelic, but they don't believe that this stuff just popped here and, all this organization, all of this, they know something more powerful than them placed it here and placed them in it. That's why they all had rituals. that replenish the earth. One of them I mentioned a few weeks ago was every time they planted a thing of that Indian corn, the spotted corn and all that, they put a fish in there with the seed. And just imagine how much, when that fish decomposes, why that corn was really, this is what they did. And the Europeans know that they did it. They're the ones that reported on, yeah, they did this, they did that. Okay, anyway. So they had a whole crew. That's why when the Hadith say it was 307,000 prophets and messengers, 124,000 prophets, and messengers, you can kind of get the feel. And when you hear them talk, when you hear the chiefs talk today, they sound very close to, no, we had wise men and they told us this and they came, so and so came, and and all of that. I said, oh, yeah, they down with it, they know they didn't pop up here and they can just abuse everything. You know what I mean? Boss man don't do that. Boss man, he don't have no ritual that say, oh Lord, thanks for this big river that's flowing through here and us to have the ability to put a dam here and that's going to hold back the water, and we thank you for the ability to do this. And anything, they don't do that. They say, well, our president and all the Congress, they did a good job, and here we got this such and such that's going dry up there now. You know what I mean? Can you imagine it? Okay, we'll get back to the subject. So what we do here is we take the Quran. This is our Hidayah. And we're going to say it over and over again because no matter how many of these things stay intact, we're in a time of redundancy and repetitiveness. Redundancy is basically like if anything happens or goes wrong and only 10% of these DVDs survive, right? Just 10%. That's great. Because with 10% of them, and there's that many of them out, and they don't have to be the latest. They could go far back as they want. Which there's some of them intact from cassette tapes that were years and years old when people were using cassettes, right? They say almost the same thing as now. And all the forecasting predicted this stuff, right? All of them did the same thing. Every week, this is it's called redundancy. If you build a spacecraft, you have to have at least 4 or 5 redundancies. This go wrong, or redundancy do that. That go wrong, or redundancy. You know what I mean? We're dealing with a movement, a global movement, and we're here in the United States of America by ourselves. And Boss Man got everybody with him, although Boss Man shouldn't have nobody with him by now. Right? But Boss Man done brainwashed people until the poor people are just still there following Boss Man. No matter what he do, they follow Boss Man. Boss Man is psychotic. And Boss Man not only have their families, but the whole world in jeopardy. And they're still following it. They might be following because of the inability. First of all, this is the pattern in history, right? And we see it over and over again. That it wasn't it wasn't just because, say, some of the people followed Freemasons, some of them follow this, some of them join a fraternity or something. You know what I mean? History is repetitive, and the people was misguided by all of that stuff. You know what I mean? Whatever it was. That's why it was a need for the Quran, for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to come, and after him, he's Khatam al-Nabiyin. But if you look at the world today, right now, here we are, we have forecasted literally everything that's happening now. And the forecasting, because you think when you get older, you get a little, not good a grip on things, but actually the accuracy level is increasing. It's increasing.